When you start thinking about opening a hotel, should you consider to use an established brand? If you do so, how does this impact the technology you are planning to use? Welcome to Never Check Out. We welcome Thijs Merks in our studio. Thijs is an entrepreneur within the hotel industry. Thijs worked for various large brands, but also for local brands. I've known Thijs for a very long time. Thijs, what makes you get out of bed in the morning?
Well, actually, George, nice to be here. I live by creating problems and maybe sometimes solving them. I have a head full of ideas which I like to try to make work, and sometimes that goes quite well. Other days I'm a bit less successful, but then again, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about, isn't it?
I think so. Too many ideas, that does not exist, I guess.
Actually,
right?
It doesn't. No.
Right.
Maybe too much in one time, but then again, it's never too much in general.
Always about hotels, or also other businesses?
I do also other businesses. As you know, I do some interim management as well, and some crisis management sometimes.
Oh wow!
Done so in healthcare, for example, in education. So I go around.
An all-rounder.
Yeah, and that's what I like to be as well. It's very all-round, not very much a specialist because of that, but I can do a lot of things, which I like. So
yeah, of course. We've done quite a lot together. I remember when starting Postillon in the new brand from, well, basically it was Accor and it went to Postillon. We did a lot together. After that, also Ibis Delft. If you look at those brands, what's a reason to choose a brand or have a local brand? What's your opinion on that?
Well, the idea is that you choose a brand mainly for its commercial/reservation value. If you assume that on the location where you are, a brand helps, then you choose a brand that has also some disadvantages. So it really has to be a careful considerations where you want to go. But in general, broad brush, the idea is that as you think it will bring you extra revenues on the site you choose for an international brand. For example, you talked about Postillon, which were more or less sites on the countryside, as I used to call it, and then you can perfectly work with a local brand, or like we did over there, establish your own brand.
So there's a difference for the location to choose if you should use an established brand or create your own?
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine you pay roughly, around 10% of your turnover if you join an international brand. So it really has to bring some money before you decide to join. If you go to in the industrial zone of like in Delft, where there's a big university and such, then it helps to be on the search engines from a big brand. But like in Bunnik, you pay a lot of money and nobody, I used to say nobody coming from New York or something goes to Bunnik. So it's totally useless to have a brand over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for distribution purposes, that's basically what you're telling us, right? Yeah. Okay, and if you talk about financing, and does it help? I mean, is it easier to finance a hotel if you use an established brand?
Well, today for sure it does. We discussed Delft at length, and at Delft we were more or less forced. It's maybe too strong, but there was a very strong indication that the bank would only help us if there was a strong brand on the building.
Do they demand that?
Basically, they do, yeah. Which, from their point of view, they look at it in a way: if such a big brand is willing to invest there, then it must be a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
If you look at the other way around, I mean, you just pay 10% of all commission. So, in my experience, big brands don't really care as long as you pay. Yeah. Because I was in Soesduinen. Do you know where Soesduinen is?
Yeah, I know where Soesduinen is.
Okay, but there is a Courtyard by Hilton.
Yep.
I don't think people from all over the world come to Courtyard by Hilton because it's Soesduinen. But there, again, it's the bank or the owner who likes.
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere. I know that property.
Really in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So. But I think for a commercial purpose, I'm not sure I would do it over there.
Because there's
be mine.
And there's also a lot of rules and standards, I guess.
Yeah, particularly in ICT because they're very afraid that they will be hacked or damaged by things you do locally. So that there's a very strong fence between everything coming from the brand and things you want to do for yourself. Like in Delft, we were more or less forced to make 2 ICT installations. I want to get the Accor reservations in because and the Accor email, and for all the rest we had a different system, which is I was particularly not amused by the fact that you have double the cost as well. Then.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And because it's an Ibis, that's a soft brand, right?
Ibis Styles is a soft brand. Ibis Styles is a soft brand, so it's. But from an ICT perspective, they're very it's a very hard franchise.
So maybe just quickly, what's the difference between a soft brand and a hard brand?
A hard brand describes everything. So the size of the room, the type of bed, the color of the carpet, everything.
Okay.
If you have a soft franchise, then you are you should use the logo in the correct way, but you are free to have your own. You can design your own hotel basically, and of course they want to approve that and have an idea, and they have some like minimum standards, but there's a lot of freedom in the interior of Delft. We designed ourselves, so that's basically free.
And are you then forced to have like a sort of the size of the TVs or the phones, or is there?
Yeah, TV size, for example, is a minimum size of for a TV. What it should have. Phones in the room, I didn't do them anymore because I think it's something from the past, but it's actually something which goes with the IBIS standard as well. So, and the idea, when you're a soft brand, there is some room there, so I said, I will not do it because nobody's using it. And then you come, if we don't get any complaints, it's fine. I've not heard anything, obviously, about missing a telephone in the room, so that was fine.
As long as you have enough towels, nobody's using the phone. I always say.
But that's what it is, huh?
Yeah. If you run around naked from the bathroom and you don't have a phone, then it's an issue. You just press 9. But nowadays, you just get your mobile phone out.
Mobile. Right? We do a lot of communication through WhatsApp these days with our guests.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hotel account, which I use for basically everything. Yeah, which works well.
Is it just the guest room experience that's free, or is there also a bit that's free to choose from for the hotel staff? So basically, you use Accortel, I think, for Accor to get your reservations in, and that's
mandatory.
That's mandatory. And then you also have to use their PMS, or is it different nowadays?
No, you also are forced to use their PMS, which is something. Which is difficult because it makes sense, in my point of view at least, that a hotel company is not a software developer.
True.
So you have your PMS is always a bit behind, and in our case a lot behind, which is understandable given the facts, but I think nowadays, and of course moving in that direction, it's better to use a standard PMS and maybe trust the cloud a bit because that's also part of the issue, and they're so careful with all that data, which I understand in the basics, but I think there are other ways of protecting it than putting it on your own server, because that's what's happening now, and that will, by the end of this year, will move to Opera.
Okay.
So that's in the cloud, and that is a small step forward.
Yeah. So just for transparency, I think it's the same with every big brand, right? I mean, Radisson, Myriad.
I'm just gonna say it's not. I mean, I'm very happy with Accor for the rest, but it is something which, like I try to say as well, it's understandable from their point of view. Only in today's day and age, if development goes so fast,
right,
then it's not possible to catch up with that if you're also a hotel brand, because that's your core business. So I think they're making it too difficult for themselves, but there's very little difference if you go to Accor or to Hilton or to you name them, Holiday Inn. They all have these limitations, and that's, I think, the biggest reason to move to a local brand or vet your own brand. That there's some more room in that apartment that you can do a bit more what you think is right.
From a staff point of view, do you think it will be harder to get staff in when you're using these old-fashioned systems?
Yes, it is, because for example, doing something on your mobile phone is with, for example, newer systems like Muse or whatever. you can use your mobile phone as well. Here you have to be in the hotel on the front desk to do your work. So it's and it's how you come less intuitive than the newer PMSs. So it's maybe not more difficult to get staff, but it's more difficult to retain them, and it takes a lot of time to teach them, to train them on such a PMS. But newer PMSs, they take the test at home, so it's something you do like in between. You have to come to the hotel. We have to, so it's
you do the training at the hotel instead of from home, or from your mobile phone or e-learning,
wherever. And it's not. Well, I mean, they get paid anyway, but it's a bit of a discomfort if you have to come just for training to your workplace, but there's no need anymore.
Because today, I mean, we preach a lot about work anywhere, anytime. Office 365, obviously a good example. Things like Office 365 and two-factor authentication, things like that. What's your take on that?
I think it's something we use, even within our core. It's coming in. Now I think it's security is an issue, maybe not in the way big change look at it, but like two-factor authentication, I think it's a must today because there's so much happening. So for security reasons, you really should. And
absolutely.
So and then again, I think it makes sense that companies are now moving into that.
In the right direction, right? Yeah. Okay. You're basically also a bit of a technical guy, right? I mean, you used to be in IT before, a long time ago maybe, but so if you look at IoT, there's a lot to be done with your aircon systems and sensors in the hotel industry. Is that anything you can decide by yourself when you use a brand, or can you use any data involved as long as it's not on that network?
Yeah, basically you can, although these type of examples, I mean, they're very, and again, understandable. They're very picky about how you use guest data as well, because there's a lot of things you could do with it, which, it's not forbidden, but it's not really supported or recommended either. So there's room, and if you want to, you can, but it's a lot of hustle if you look at the demands, because it would mean that we have to have really a second network, or if you want to do something with, for example, something I like, guest movements, where they're going, and with all these data, well, through our core, you're not allowed, so then you're supposed to put on your own sensors everywhere next to the core network, which makes it at least, not so attractive. And most of the time, then you don't do it because it's too expensive.
Right. But if you're multi-brand, because I can imagine that, I mean, you see a lot of operators nowadays, right? No. And they have like all these different brands. They use like the Marriott brand, Hilton brand, Accor brand. You still want that data, I guess, to be consolidated and
you do that. That will be. You would prefer, but it starts with your hotel system. You would prefer to move to something like, for example, Muse, where you could put all these things next to each other and still use all the data, if you want to. And the same goes for all other type of data you could collect. That obviously you would like to have it all through all these brands, which, like I said, is not impossible, but it's a big hustle because you have to get them some way out of that other system. Make sure that that's anonymous, and then you can use it. But it's a lot of
more import-export thing than a generic API thing.
Yeah, so it's therefore it's more complicated, and from what I've seen, most people I know with multi-brand companies don't do it because it's too much of a hassle.
Okay, fair enough. Still enough possibilities to do a brand? Would you do it yourself? Opening another hotel or
Well, like I said, for me, the point of view, it is still about the location. I mean, if I think that the location, a brand adds value, I will use brand. I will be a bit more tough, I think, in negotiations about what you can, what you cannot do. I mean, I've seen that there are some hotels with the other brands who use Muse, for example.
Yeah.
No shares in Muse, by the way, but it's. It would help a lot, so I would push more to get those type of solutions with future brands. I might have been, for Delft, I might have been too careful, is that a way of saying it?
Maybe, or you have
didn't push hard enough to get the room there I actually would like to have. So.
Well, we live and learn, but is there room for negotiation?
Well, the way it works is that you can, if you can point out some other hotels, but you can with almost all big chains where they have, for example, another system or so that there is. It's also depending on how much they want you to sign you, how much they want your location. If you look at city center Delft, it is something they like to have. So, bigger and medium-sized cities like Delft or Maastricht, or if you offer them a proposition, they're very keen to sign, and then there's room for negotiation. And like I said, if you're in Bunnik, then you probably get any room.
Yeah. And the larger brands, they used to have their own buildings and their own stuff. I mean, from Accor, we see a movement going towards franchise. Is that the same with all the brands?
Yeah. You could say that Accor is more or less the last going in that direction. I mean, if you look at Hilton or Holiday Inn, they do franchise for a long time, so that they were like, when I was with Accor 100 years ago, we had like 10% franchise. Today it's about 40. But if you look at Holiday Inn, they have like 90% franchise and only 10% flagship stores where they try out things and stuff. But it's just a very small part of the total.
No real estate companies anymore.
No, not anymore. It's become too expensive as well.
Okay. So, anything you want to advise another entrepreneur when they're choosing a brand? What should they look at? What's very important?
Well, like I said, I think you should not underestimate the influence. The influence of the PMS, because I think it makes a big difference if you can do something at home from your phone, or if I have to call you, have to come to the hotel and
obviously
change the price or a rate or whatever. If you have to come there, just for doing that, you have to open or close, and you have to come. Just for that, that's not really. It's not the way that the people who work with us today expect to work. So that's really a difficult thing. The other thing is that personally I like to do a lot of things with technical, let's say, gadgets. How nice would it be if you have like a hologram in your reception desk instead of because a lot of these things you can do automatically, and probably it goes faster if you use AI for that. So, but there's also something the brand has to understand and has to support in a way, because if you're not allowed to do these things, and I think it's a bit of a pity because there's a lot of things which you could do, which you maybe cannot do if you don't discuss them up front. So I think it's really important to think through your concept. What do I want to do? What do I want to show to my guests? And bring this list to the negotiations when you start talking with a brand.
Yeah, but things change rapidly nowadays, right? So I'm sure you can think about holograms and things like that for the coming 5 years. But then in 10 years, things will be different. Is there like, how long is a contract normally to sign up with a brand?
Well, it depends, from 5 to 15 years. Personally, I like the 5-year period, because like you said, that's a period you can more or less predict what's going to happen. At least you will not be wiped off your feet by something most of the time. And then you renegotiate, and then there is room maybe for some change, and maybe at that point to stop with a brand, because when you're strong enough on the location, maybe you don't need it anymore.
Or you have a good renegotiable.
Well, you get better terms, which could also be interesting.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Thijs. Thank you for coming to the studio and this great talk. For our viewers and listeners, I hope this was an inspiring session for you. Please subscribe to the podcast by clicking on the link. And remember, you can always check in, but never check out.